This is Marc Mullinax, and I welcome you back to Power for the Peaceful, a podcast and class on Taoism. Today, verse 18, the greatest pretense.
When you listen to the ground and you put your roots down, you can hear what she says if you're listening. When you listen to the ground and you put your roots down, you can hear what she says if you're listening. The sweet sound of the river as she moves over the stones. The same song that the blood in your body sings as it weaves around your bones. When you're listening, are you listening?
Look to the rock from which you were hewn, and to the quarry from which you were dug. Isaiah 51, verse 1.
Welcome back to this class on Taoism and Tao Te Ching. Our quote and question asker today is Stephanie McCleskey, who serves as the chaplain to Mars Hill University. She is a wanderer, a ponderer, a lover of love, a fanatic of laughter and conversation, and my friend and partner in seeking any and all paths to peace and justice. Today, an exciting verse for me that begins to address a critical question. What happens when Tao is lost to or forgotten and deserted by human beings? When people lose touch with their fundamental truths, what then do we get in touch with? Like, what happens first and then second and third? If we learn to recognize what we can lose, can we remember and save what we love? Using Christian language, this is salvation in Taoism. Remembering. Lots to do, so let's get right to the translation, please. Verse 18 triggers. When people desert great Tao, they settle for thinned out rules. Spiritless concepts of morality and self-righteousness, even shrewdness, arise as substitutes. Similarly, when cleverness and cunning become virtues, it's only because artifice and hypocrisy have triggered them. When family systems fail, watch how exhortations of filial piety and family values become popular. Patriots and loyal ministers shout out their importance only when they feel that decay threatens their nation. As we saw in the last episode, to lose Tao is not to lose Tao itself, but to forget one's natural connection with Tao, its virtue, and our birthright connections with peace, harmony, and our fellow womb mates. This forgetfulness allows for several levels of diminishments or compromise. If you're a leader, for example, your natural leadership goes from invisibility to a degrading desire to have people adore you. And then, going lower, they begin to fear you and then despise, revile, and all kinds of not good things. Verse 18 addresses verse 17's question in a more focused way. The Chinese here has the word fei, F-E-I, meaning lost, forgotten, strayed from, in decline, or abandoned. And then immediately afterward, the word you, which we hear a lot today, which means to arise. In short, to forget is to cause, maybe even to invite, something else to arise. So what are these first things or signs that happen when we abandon trust in Tao and substitute that trust for lesser values? Example, picture in your mind's eye a loving couple. See how very attracted each is to the other, physically, emotionally, and in the myriad of ways they construct a meaningful life together. No one has to urge them on. They just do the normal action that love inspires. Thinking all the time of each other, surprising the other with delights. Now, suppose in our hypothetical couple, one of the partners forgets or loses their original attraction or reason for their being a loving couple. So instead of daily, meaningful words, glances, or hugs, one person starts to lose interest. And perhaps their first diminishment is to start going through love's motions rather than love's joyful paces. They just follow the habits and ruts of their past love practices, but the spark is no longer there. And so the first thing that happens in this forgetfulness is the arising, or in Chinese, yu, a sense of duty to their partner. Instead of, I am giving myself to the other person because I strongly and everlastingly want to, that person begins to give of themselves on a fixed schedule, metering their attention to the others, not with love, but with duty or obligation. So the first thing that happens when one loses one's central love or attraction is to settle for rote, duty-inspired behavior, not love-generated spontaneity, to no one's benefit. Yeah, you get the dinner cooked, the children get raised, but where's the joy? Day after day, duty rules, and forgetful of their previous road of love, they start down this sundered road of duty. Resentment, that corrosive acid that dissolves relationships, begins. So that key Chinese term yu is used 4 times in this short verse of 26 words, meaning arise or emerges. When one loses one's way or Tao, something else arises. A substitute, an artificial stand-in for that which was original. Duty can seem to be a replacement for love in relationships. Going through the motions while inspired by duty can seem, but is not, an appropriate replacement for the actions inspired by love. Now I use relationships, love relationships, as a metaphoric base from which to teach how this highest and best virtue of Tao is always with us, and what happens when we forget or lose it. Love versus duty is not the only dyad here, though. A patriot, in the best sense of the word, can settle for hyper-nationalism. Someone's deep desire for a career can depreciate into jobs, where one's main reward is to settle for change in one's pocket, rather than changing the world.
The ways of the world become daily more artificial. Hence, we have names like wisdom and reason, kindness and justice, cleverness and profit. Those who understand the Tao see how artificial they are and how inappropriate they are to rule the world. They aren't as good as getting people to focus their attention on the undyed and the uncarved. By wearing the undyed and holding the uncarved, our self-interest and desires wane. The undyed and the uncarved refer to our original nature. Chao Hung.
The ways we settle. Not having first best, we settle for second, third, and fourth best. Just like in verse 17, we saw how people settle for second, third, and fourth best when they forgot what they are made of and made for, which is highest possible virtue. Now, the cool thing here in this verse for this historian of religion is based upon a real-life historical example. Forgetfulness of Tao caused a real-time, real-life political, spiritual crisis for the first Taoists, and I'll relate that right after a short break. And during this break, I'm inviting you to meditate on when you may have abandoned your original golden humanity and perhaps settled for second best.
When you're listening, are you listening? When you're listening, are you listening?
There is no passion to be found playing small, in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. Nelson Mandela.
Okay, here's the history. Both Confucianism and Taoism were alive and well at the same time, 5th and 6th centuries BCE, and in the same place, China. And both are still alive and well. And curiously, both systems employ the same word, Tao, to serve as their key concept of human identity, what our capacities and natures and capabilities are. Confucianists, on the one hand, felt that Tao was the way heaven had arranged for human behavior to be ordered. Tao for Confucianism was the nature of the human, especially in relationship with other human beings. Taoists countered with their prior deeper Tao of nature itself. And to be in sync with Tao, one is joined not with just other human societies or cultures, but with the entire universe. It's a huge difference. Back in the day, Lao Tzu and Taoists felt that Confucianism settled for second best. Confucianists' use of Tao was to support a rational, humanistic understanding of humans and who humans are in the universe. To do this, Confucianists felt that one's best environment in which to know the truth of life was, and still remains to this day, within a family context. Love or duty to family through the generations, honoring both living and dead ancestors, was considered the ultimate act and supreme moral obedience of a human being's capability. So the human ultimate is one's active relationship to other humans, both dead and alive. There was even a 5 cardinal relations scorecard that you could keep on yourself. You are enmeshed in 5 binary relationships. 1, you and your ruler. 2, you and your parents. 3, you and your elder or younger siblings. 4, you and your spouse. And you and your friend, 5th. And this meant 2 obvious things and 1 hidden thing. First, the older of the binaries receives more dutiful attention and respect. Second, the younger must give that attention and expect less in return. And the unspoken rule was this: the female must give that attention to males and expect less in return. This arrangement was called, and still is called today, filial piety, a significant cornerstone of Confucian morality to this day. So let me be clear. Confucianism in its later iterations in East Asian regions has an amazingly successful record for state order and social stability. However, this record rests upon a Tao of human hierarchy. That Tao gave every individual a role to play based on their 5 binaries just described, with the added wild card of gender. Caste is not too strong a word here. A caste system based upon a male-preferred culture and the ordering of classes by the ruling ideas of its elites. At its best, Confucian cultures have amazing stability through a tightly woven and controlled social network. At its worst, Confucianism helped to bind Chinese women's feet, literally. If any person in the system, especially female, were to act contrary to one's station in life, you literally brought multi-generational shame upon your family name, meaning 0 options for ever improving your family's social standing. Hence the Japanese bumper sticker that describes their understanding of Confucian conformity.
The nail that sticks up will be hammered down.
Confucianism is still the most influential family system in the world today. On several occasions, I have had the privilege of teaching the tenets of Confucianism to young Confucians in Korea who had never reflected upon their family system in any critical way. They were, to a student, stunned at the system that they had grown up in, worked in, and perpetuated. Confucian filial relations remain to this day the cornerstone of most East Asian societies. And here's a true story. When I used to teach at the world's largest women's university in Seoul, like 5 years ago, and lived on its campus, faculty like I would be asked by the faculty housing office our ages. Why? Because the oldest professors got the best housing. The younger faculty got the least preferred housing. Confucius lives still. What is Tao to Taoist? This has ever been our class and podcast's work, so I only remind you how Tao in Taoism is the nature of nature. Everything is rooted in this, not in some narrow or shallow version of human nature, but a deeply rooted process and principle that is nature itself. Nature's operating system is the same operating system for every possible thing. The goal of Taoism is to realize one's natural oneness with this one Tao that brings about everything and nurtures everything. One way to understand this comes from verse 25.
Mysterious but complete, pre-existing the universe, arriving soundlessly and formless. Alone, it endures without change. Whole, complete, untiring, and flowing through everything, it may be considered the universe's womb. If forced to name this, I utter the sound Tao, or worse, the way. Reluctantly, I describe it with the word great. It alone functions everywhere, calling all things back to their single source home.
When you're listening, are you listening? When you're listening, are you listening?
During a virtuous age, obedience and love are considered normal. Hence, no one is called obedient and loving. Nowadays, when someone is obedient or loving, we praise them. This is because the 5 relations are no longer harmonious. Huang Pang.
While Confucianism and Taoism each understand Tao as its source, this verse 18 teaches that when creation's original pristine order, or Tao, is forgotten, or lost, or discarded, we might begin acting like a Confucian, leading by a false Tao that neglects our most original nature. This verse's reference to family systems is a broadside against vacuous filial piety and family rituals that arise when you forget your true origins. Filial piety, said Taoists, does not have to be taught. Love for others is something we naturally do.
When you're listening, are you listening? When you're listening, are you listening?
Applications. When anyone, anywhere, anytime neglects their natural trust in the Tao or way, there arises, and there's that word you again, a group of megaphone wielders, shouters. We know them as culture warriors, those wanting a return to the good old days that never were in the first place, to reshape the culture in their small images. Their sense of culture's decay triggers certain individuals or groups to embrace second and third and fourth best nostalgia systems, but they don't embrace Tao. They seek to ratchet society to their peculiar liking by emphasizing unacceptable human behavior or unacceptable books. But the ways of being balanced are numberless. All one has to do is start to begin to neglect Tao. And just watch what arises, that word you again. Just watch what arises in its stead. Tao's utterly revolutionary simplicity does not need artificial supports or overlays of morality or ritual, because in the Taoist worldview, opposing via a seemingly moral pushing against is a perverse but quite assured way to maintain and even strengthen that which one seeks to oppose. Declaring wars on culture, drugs, or terrorism, that declaration being the sure sign that Tao is neglected, often sets the conditions for more warfare in each. I mean, when you declare there's an enemy, eventually you have to fight this ghost whose origins are only in one's mind. And before it's all over, those who declare war, they morph into the very images of what they claim to fight. We'll see these ideas continue in the next verse. When one forgets, abandons, denies, or represses one's natural connections, we move from first love to duty first. A scenario in which duty, as virtuous as duty can be, is ever second best. I mean, when I teach a class of students, I want the students to be there because of an intrinsic love of learning. But the classroom really degenerates when a significant number of students are in the class just to dutifully check a box on the way to graduation. Artificial is their interest in the class. Forced is their participation. until they know the equivalent of an intrinsic love of the class or subject matter, what exactly will they learn? Except the rules for just getting by, or just earning credit for a class. Settling for second best, we unleash a whole industrial lying complex of what we are made of and made for. So, conclusion. How do you want to live your life? We ever sense the call to live according to the highest or deepest of truths. The highest quality of life and joy springs from our innate capacities for being full-on present with Tao. The quality of our attention forms the quality of our lives. Our greatest pretense is that we are made for second best. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, and to the quarry from which you were dug. Here's our homework. Find a place or two in your past where you may have settled for something less than what you knew you should be. You forgot your original self, maybe. Meditate on what happened, including how you found your groove again. And next, maybe do the same for your present life. Any settling for seconds and thirds? Well, what now? Now let's go to Stephanie's question.
If part of what we are learning is to trust our true selves, our true nature, can we ever know that we have stripped away the expectations and such imposed by society and by ourselves and reached that trustworthy core? Is there a point of certainty, or is that part of what we are letting go?
Oh my, Stephanie, thank you for this wonderful question, one that returned me to why I am continuously drawn back to Taoism over these past 45 years. You ask, can we ever feel the confidence that we have emptied our cluttered minds and chaotic hearts of all the baggage offered by and received willingly from our socializations into the peculiarities of time and place? Sometimes, yes. Many days, no. Following Tao is a trust experience that we are at base golden and not defective, okay, not imbalanced, perfected, completed, whole. With all the voices out there that might tear us down, cause us to doubt, and render us paralyzed, it's a wonder that we are functional at all. You know, I confess, I'm bad at trust. The legacy of my early spiritual formation is this potent species of spiritual terrorism that arises, the Chinese word you again, that ever arises in moments of doubt, anguish, and when dark clouds gather. You think you're finished with the past, with fear, with uncertainty, but these seem never to be finished with you. And so I forget my home base, my base in Tao. And forgetting, I develop these triggers, these secondary ideas about who I may be or should be, including doubts about my pure, golden, trustworthy core at my depths. Sometimes I feel an assurance, but never a certainty about my core goodness. But this takes a spiritual practice to remember that assurance. Many a day I fail to practice the jewel of Tao, for I am told and I may feel that I am some kind of rusty container for it. But what if there is no container for Tao, and that I am Tao's ambassador right where I am with who I am, and rust has no place? I'm not advocating a fake it till you make it strategy here. 1,000 times no. Faking is never a path to authenticity. Instead, perhaps a good old Kierkegaardian leap of faith is the path here. When in the dark, when in the rising tide of doubt, just leap. Leap to a phone call. Leap to reaching out to a friend. Leap to moving to a new place. And maybe, just maybe, we can be assured that wherever we land has to be better than the place from which we jumped. No promises, though. No certainty. This is existential, nail-biting, striving to remember just who we actually are. But my fervent hope every time I leap is that I come back to my senses in and within a community of love, support, and mercy. I don't think we'll ever strip away forever and for good that socialization racket that our societies assaults us with. We live and participate in a world reeking of advertising, hucksterism, sales, hustles, and a million messages that we are inadequate unless we buy some of somebody else's supplemental insurance of some sort. But I urge us all to find our safe places, our safe communities, where we can practice who we are and come to a blessed assurance, along with Christian Saint Julian of Norwich, who said, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well." Like starting now. This is my desire for myself and for all who listen in today. All is well, and all is well, and all manner of things are very, very well. The podcast here is an original labor of love, designed, written, and co-produced by many, whose central idea is that Tao Te Ching is good news for today. Tao still speaks. Stephanie McCleskey gave voice to our quotes and question this week. Audrey Davis is our esteemed artist. Molly Hartwell sings her haunting song, "Put Your Roots Down." Fortress Press holds the copyright for quotations from my Tao Te Ching translation. And thank you for your attendance in this class on Taoism. May your days begin in deep peace and become wombs for radical hope.
Are you listening?